When Elizabeth turned 75, she found herself thinking more often about the people she had lost. Her husband passed away nearly a decade ago, and though she filled her days with gardening book clubs and visits from her children, the silence in her evenings sometimes felt heavier than she could bear. She would sit at the kitchen table sipping her tea and wonder if anyone would remember her quirks, her laughter, or even her favorite recipes when she was gone. But Elizabeth never spoke these thoughts aloud. She worried her children would find it morbid or that her friends would pull away if she brought up death. So she carried those unspoken questions inside, where they grew larger and heavier with time. Her silence wasn't unusual. In many families, death is treated like an unwelcome guest, something you avoid mentioning, as if speaking of it might invite it into your home sooner. Yet the irony is that for seniors like Elizabeth, death is not an abstract idea. It is a part of everyday life, showing up in doctors' visits, in obituaries of old friends, in aches that don't fade as easily as they once did. Pretending it isn't there doesn't make it go away. It only makes the fear stronger. Silence creates a loneliness that no amount of distraction can cure. Elizabeth's story mirrors the quiet struggle so many seniors face. Behind warm smiles and polite conversations, there often lies an ocean of unspoken worries. What will happen when the time comes? Will loved ones know her wishes? Will her family argue over her care or her belongings? These questions can be like shadows growing larger each time they are ignored. And yet, despite the weight of these fears, many older adults feel they must protect their families by staying silent. They fear burdening children who already juggle busy lives, or they worry about being dismissed with phrases like, "Don't talk like that," or "You're not going anywhere." But silence rarely brings comfort. Instead, it leaves seniors carrying the heaviest load alone. Elizabeth herself admitted that she often felt more anxious after family gatherings because she longed to share her thoughts but swallowed them back. She described it as trying to hold in a deep sigh that never escapes. Silence may look like protection, but it often turns into isolation. The turning point for Elizabeth came one quiet Sunday afternoon. Her granddaughter Emily, only 24, asked her a simple but unexpected question. "Grandma, what do you want us to remember most about you?" At first, Elizabeth laughed it off, brushing the question aside. But Emily pressed gently, saying she wanted to know while she still had the chance. Slowly, Elizabeth opened up. She talked about how she hoped her family would keep her tradition of Sunday dinners alive, how she wanted her old cookbooks passed down, and how she didn't fear death as much as she feared being forgotten. To Elizabeth's surprise, the conversation didn't create distance, it drew her family closer. Emily held her hand tightly, her eyes filled with respect and love. That evening, Elizabeth said she slept more peacefully than she had in years. For the first time, she realized that talking about death didn't bring doom. It brought relief, connection, and even joy in knowing her voice was heard. And that is the heart of today's discussion. Talking about death, though uncomfortable at first, often leads to more peace than silence ever could. In the sections ahead, we'll explore 6 powerful lessons that show why these conversations matter so deeply for seniors and how breaking the silence can transform fear into comfort. If you find this topic meaningful so far, please take a moment to comment below, hit the like button, and subscribe so you never miss another video from Senior Ways. Lesson 1. Talking about death reduces hidden anxiety. For many seniors, fears about death stay tucked away in the quiet corners of the mind, unspoken and unresolved. Paul, a 78-year-old retired teacher, knew this feeling well. Every time he experienced chest pain or a new ache, his thoughts immediately went to the possibility of his own passing. Yet he said nothing to his wife. He believed staying silent was protecting her, but the truth was, it only left him carrying the burden alone. The more he held it in, the heavier it became. His nights grew restless, and even small health concerns felt overwhelming because there was no outlet for his fear. Eventually, Paul decided to open up during a gentle evening walk with his wife. With a trembling voice, he admitted that thoughts of death often weighed on him. Instead of being frightened, she squeezed his hand and confessed she had been holding back the same thoughts. That single exchange turned fear into comfort. They realized they were not alone in their worries, and that made the burden much lighter. Experts tell us that when fears are hidden, they often grow larger in the mind. But speaking them out loud takes away some of their power. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly the shadows don't seem so frightening. For seniors, conversations about death can create the peace that silence cannot, because they transform private anxiety into shared understanding. Lesson 2. Talking about death deepens family connection and trust. Seniors often worry that discussing death will make their loved ones uncomfortable. Elizabeth, who you met earlier, once said she avoided the subject because she didn't want to upset her children. Yet, avoiding the topic can create confusion and distance within families. When wishes are left unspoken, loved ones are left guessing, and those guesses can lead to tension or even conflict. Daniel, an 82-year-old veteran, experienced this firsthand. For years, he refused to discuss his wishes. When his health began to decline, his 3 children each believed they knew what he wanted, but their assumptions clashed. One thought he would want hospital care no matter what, another believed he'd prefer to stay at home, and the third assumed he didn't care either way. Arguments began to surface at a time when the family most needed unity. Finally, Daniel gathered his children for a heartfelt talk. He explained what mattered to him, from the type of care he preferred to the music he wanted at his memorial. To his surprise, the conversation didn't feel heavy. It felt like a gift. His children listened, cried, and even laughed together as they finally heard his heart directly from him. That night, the family left the table more connected than they had been in years. Research confirms that families who talk openly about end-of-life wishes often report stronger trust and closeness. For seniors, sharing these thoughts is not about surrendering to death. It is about protecting the living, ensuring that loved ones won't be left with painful uncertainty. By speaking openly, seniors offer a final act of love, one that creates peace instead of confusion. If you're watching this and feel nervous about raising such a subject, remember, this silence may seem safe, but it keeps you apart. Honest words, though difficult at first, can open doors to closeness and trust. And if these stories are resonating with you, please take a moment to comment below, hit like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another video from Senior Ways. Lesson 3. Talking about death ensures wishes are respected and understood. One of the greatest fears many seniors carry is that when the time comes, their voices won't be heard. They worry decisions will be made for them that don't reflect their true desires. Evelyn, a 79-year-old grandmother, kept this fear locked inside for years. She didn't want to think about medical choices, funerals, or legal documents. But deep down, she feared her family would face confusion or even disagreements if she left no guidance. Her turning point came when a close friend passed away without ever sharing her wishes. The family was left struggling, not knowing what kind of service she wanted or how to divide her belongings. Watching the painful conflict unfold convinced Evelyn to speak up. One Sunday afternoon, she sat her children around the dining table and explained her wishes clearly. She wanted a simple memorial, her jewelry passed to her daughters, and her garden tools given to her grandson, who loved planting beside her. She even wrote everything down. The relief in her children's eyes was unforgettable. They no longer had to guess or worry about disappointing her. Instead, they felt honored to know exactly how to carry out her wishes. Legal experts remind us that clear communication and planning prevent not only conflict, but also guilt. Without guidance, families often struggle with questions like, "Did I do the right thing?" But when seniors share their choices openly, those worries vanish. For Evelyn, finally voicing her preferences was liberating. She said it gave her peace at night, knowing her children would not be burdened with uncertainty. Talking about death, far from being morbid, became her way of showing love and respect for the people she cherished most. Lesson 4. Talking about death helps seniors find meaning and legacy. For many older adults, silence about death also means silence about life. The values they held, the lessons they learned, the stories they want remembered. Speaking about death is not only about medical care or possessions, it is also about leaving behind a legacy that gives life deeper meaning. Take Harold, an 81-year-old former mechanic who often told stories about working in his small-town garage. But when it came to death, he said nothing. His children assumed he didn't want to discuss it. One day his daughter gently asked what he wanted people to remember most about him. Harold paused, then shared something he had never said out loud before, that he wanted people to remember his patience, how he always tried to treat every customer with fairness, whether they were rich or struggling to pay. That one statement changed the way his family looked at him. They realized his true legacy wasn't the cars he fixed, but the kindness he practiced daily. From then on, Harold began writing letters to his grandchildren filled with the life lessons he wanted to pass down. Speaking about death became the spark that helped him celebrate what his life stood for. Experts in psychology note that reflecting on death often inspires people to focus on what truly matters. For seniors, it can bring clarity about the values they want to pass on and the stories they hope will live beyond them. Silence, by contrast, leaves these treasures unspoken. By opening up, seniors can ensure their legacy isn't lost, but carried forward with love. For Harold, the conversation gave him a sense of completion. He no longer saw death as an ending, but as a doorway through which his values would continue. Talking about death allowed him to highlight his life's meaning, and in doing so, gave his family a gift they would treasure forever. Lesson 5. Talking about death turns fear into peace through acceptance. Perhaps the greatest gift that comes from discussing death is the calm that follows. Fear thrives in silence, but when death is spoken about openly, it often transforms into something less frightening. Jean, a 77-year-old widow, carried an unspoken fear that her final days would be lonely. She avoided the subject with her children, hoping it would somehow fade if she never mentioned it. Yet the opposite happened. Her anxiety grew, showing up in restless nights and moments of sudden sadness. One evening, at the encouragement of a close friend, Jeanne decided to bring it up with her daughter. She shared her worries about being alone, her desire for hospice care, if needed, and her hope to pass peacefully in her own home. To her surprise, her daughter responded with warmth and reassurance. She promised her mother she would be there and that the family would make sure her wishes were honored. Jean described the feeling after that conversation as a weight lifting off her chest. She said she no longer felt trapped by fear, but instead felt surrounded by love. The reality of death hadn't changed, but her relationship with it had. Psychologists often remind us that acceptance doesn't mean giving up, it means facing truth with calm and clarity. For Jean, talking about death transformed a source of dread into a pathway to peace. Final thoughts: when silence turns into speech, seniors often discover that life feels lighter. Elizabeth, Paul, Daniel, Evelyn, Harold, and Jean all experienced peace once they opened their hearts. What began as unspoken fear turned into connection, understanding, and acceptance. For many seniors, this transformation is profound. Instead of hiding from the subject, they embrace it, finding that it brings them closer to their families, clarifies their wishes, and highlights the meaning of their lives. Talking about death does not shorten life, it enriches it, giving each day a sense of freedom. Let's take a moment to remember what we've learned together. First, talking about death reduces hidden anxiety by turning private fears into shared comfort. Second, it deepens family connection and trust, replacing confusion with closeness. Third, it ensures wishes are respected, sparing loved ones from painful uncertainty. Fourth, it helps seniors find meaning and legacy, ensuring their values and stories live on. And finally, it turns fear into peace through acceptance, allowing seniors to face the future with calm. Each of these lessons shows that silence may feel safe, but in truth, it is conversation that brings true peace. If you are a senior watching this or someone who loves a senior, consider this a gentle encouragement. Don't wait. Begin the conversation. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but the relief, closeness, and peace it brings are worth more than silence could ever give. And now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you had an honest conversation about death with your loved ones? What was it like for you? Please share your story in the comments. It may help another senior find the courage to speak. And if you found this video meaningful, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another conversation here on Senior Ways. Remember, talking about death is not about inviting it sooner. It's about living each day with more peace, more love, and more freedom.